Hi, welcome to Together Unlocked. It's Wednesday, it's 3 o'clock. I'm Ju Gosling, artist and artistic director of Together 2012, bringing you this live stream today. I've got actually very much shorter than Monday red hennaed hair because in the spirit of Pride Month, which we're also celebrating this June, I decided what self respecting lesbian would not give themselves a haircut at least once in their life. And it was indeed extremely hot. Robin claims that nobody can actually tell the difference on the live stream, but I promise you, inches and inches have come off, and it is now a number two. I also have a purple t shirt on that says Mad Love. I've got black framed glasses and my hands are in black splints. I'm going to hand over now to Julie Newman, artist and chair of Together 2012, to describe herself. But just to say, although she's not really keen to cooperate, I would love her to be sponsored to let me cut her hair.
Sorry, Hugh, that's just not going to happen. Um, I'm Julie Newman. I've got silver and gold hair, not quite so nicely coiffed today. I've got dark rimmed glasses, and today I'm wearing I think a pillar box red polo shirt. It's not traffic light red. It's sort of more of a darker pillar box, I think.
So, over to the other half of the virtual sofa in the West Midlands.
I'm Josh Surgeonator. I'm one of the hosts of Together TV and a PhD research student. And I have slightly messy, slightly damp blonde hair. Having recently
it's ginger right now.
I was going to say it looks ginger, but I can tell that's because it's wet, not because it's ginger. And I am wearing a grey t-shirt that has a kind of hand-drawn picture of Batman on it and Batman across the top. It looks like it's been kind of drawn with a biro or something. And it looks that close to hand drawn that I was wearing it once and somebody asked me if I'd drawn it, which I thought was a wonderful compliment, but wildly misplaced.
So you said yes, of course I did.
Yeah.
Okay, well, hi, I am Robin Surgeonator. I am business director of Together 2012. I think at this point I should let people know that, in fact, my sister-in-law, who has 7 children, 5 of them have battery-powered, gorgeous, gingery red hair. I mean, absolutely, and it's such a vibrant colour. So we're not actually that fussed about being ginger.
My best mate's ginger.
The picture of him as a baby looks exactly like the picture of her son as a baby. So it's quite ironic. So anyway, so more about me. So as I say, I'm Robin. I have yes, stylized now COVID hair. However, I can honestly say that I have actually cut various parts of my hair with a shaver. I'm being very careful here. As a swimmer who also like to make silly statements and stuff like that about themselves, I did at one European Championships, just to go faster and upset the other swimmers with a bit of psych, shaved all the sides of my hair off. This was in the days before that was, well, kind of after punk, but before it was like the new trend.
So what you're saying is you gave yourself racing stripes.
Yeah, and actually between the semis or one of the finals in Seoul, I'd had this idea that what I would do was that I would shave GB for Great Britain into my chest hair, but you couldn't see it until I was wet. So when you get on the block and you take your t-shirt off, it just looks like a chest hair. And it was a longer event, so because as you get to the shorter events, you shave right down. But so I think it was it was either 2 or the 400 free, and thankfully I won. So then when I got out at the end of the pool to kind of be like, yay, it also had GB shaved into my chest. So there you go. But today I am not looking like that. I'm wearing a black polo t-shirt with an angry fish logo on the front of it.
And Angry Fish is your musician's name, but also the name of your training company. So,
Absolutely.
yes, I wish I hadn't just started this discussion about lockdown hair. That was slightly too much information, but we'd love to see your lockdown looks. So, please do send them in. You may have thought you'd wandered into a fashion show, but in fact, we're here to talk about disability arts, life in lockdown, and what's going on at the moment. So, for example, it is Learning Disability Week, but today, and it's Newham Heritage Month. But today is a national day of action called We Shall Not Be Removed, which is a social media campaign all about disability arts. So, we're going to start off with a discussion about, well, what is disability arts and what is this campaign all about? And I'm going to pick on one of you volunteers to tell me what they think a definition of disability arts is.
Oh, okay. I can do that one. For me, disability art is art that reflects the lived experience of impairment and the collision with the world that you live in. In a nutshell.
Josh, have you got a nutshell?
Oh, do I have to follow that? Can't Julie go next?
Yeah, let's make Julie go next. Go on,
I agree
Julie.
with Robin completely. I can't make that any better.
Yeah, I'll third that.
I'm not
We
sure.
shouldn't have let him go third, should we? We should have let him go last.
So I'll just start properly then, shall I? I think that's I think it's one definition, and I think that's where it all gets a bit complicated. And I should flag up on the together2012.org.uk website under resources. We have a lot of discussion about what is disability, what do people mean about things like the social model, but we also have a big section on what is disability arts. And we look at those definitions and then we mix them up a bit and say, well, actually, the boundaries are really quite blurred. I would define, well, certainly in terms of what I program as an artistic director. And, you know, if you don't know Together 2012 and you're an artist, I would love to see your work. And indeed, we would love to show it on the live stream. But a disabled artist making work about any subject falls into my definition of disability art. If somebody isn't disabled, then there's that whole discussion about, well, can you make disability art at all? Again, I would say, well, it all depends, because if you're going through the same experiences with somebody, they may not be able to vocalize those things or communicate them for themselves, you know, or it's about your experience as an ally or a carer, then I would sort of say, yeah, that probably squeezes in to my definition of disability art. Julie? Because it can't be just as simple as, well, it's about making art about disability, because I think that's far too narrow.
No, and I have to say that's kind of not what, and I'm sure you realise that's not what I meant. I think it's much more about, it's about how the impact of who you are comes through your art. And as a disabled person, it's almost impossible as a creator to that not be part of what you're doing. And even if I join a covers band and I go out and play Beatles songs, then my experiences, how I get on the stage, what the audience are like, all of those things are still going to impact. So it's kind of difficult to get outside of it. But I think sometimes it's like, I'm a guitar player and I'm a disabled artist. And the guitar player is the art form and the artist is what informs the art form, if you like. So that, and indeed that somebody who does have a proper empathetic understanding or comes across intersectionality in terms of equality issues, they are also potentially able to present work that reflects disability and disability art in a way that we would still accept as disability art.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons I picked that up And again, linking it back to Learning Disability Week, let's be as intersectional or intersecting as we possibly can. Um, oh, sorry, that's my short term memory gone again. Say the last thing you just said to me, Robin.
Oh, and mine. And just yeah. Sorry, I should listen to what I say, shouldn't I? And just that it's about that you can have an art, you can have a skill, so a guitar player, a painter, a writer, but what informs the creativity is the part that would make it disability art or liberation art, for example.
Great. And in fact, what the point that Julie, I want you to fill in for a moment because it keeps coming and going. But yes, I think the definition that I've seen in the easy read information about disability art has boiled down to just that. It's a disabled person making work about their experience of being disabled. I don't think that is a helpful definition. I think it's a very, very narrow definition. I would argue that any person with a learning difficulty making art, like you say, is informed by that experience. And I would program that as disability art. It wouldn't have to be about their experiences of being segregated, excluded, discriminated against. It could be about their love of nature. We've seen a lot of art sent into this show already by people with learning difficulties, and by and large it has not been about their experiences because they're disabled. It's their experiences as that whole person.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got a little bit lost there, but for me, I think it's very simple. It boils down to the fact that whether I wake up thinking, "Oh, today I'm a disabled person," doesn't really matter. It means that basically I wake up saying, "Today I'm a person and I'm going to make some art, and I'm also disabled. I'm also a lesbian. I'm also a feminist. I'm also relatively old now these days." And so the end product is the end product of me and my life experience. So whatever that looks like, as a disabled person, I would suggest that the my creativity is harnessed in a way which is deeply affected by my experience in life as a disabled person. So sort of my creative outlet is always going to be excuse me, is always going to be deeply connected with me as a disabled person, but also me as a feminist, etc., etc., etc. So I might make photographs about mountains or seashores or boats. I do a lot of stuff with boats, but my own perspective is unique to me as a disabled person.
Yes, and I think the other thing that I think can be a little bit narrow is this focus on artists. There are lots of other creative people working in the arts, whether that's theatre directors, producers, the list goes on and on and on, from lighting engineers, costume designers, production managers, sound engineers. All of those jobs are very, very creative. Then you have all the jobs front of house, you have the jobs backstage. One of the main concerns of the We Shall Not Be Removed campaign and this day of action on social media is the impact on jobs. We've spent many, many years fighting to get much better representation of disabled people in the arts. And publicly funded arts through the lottery and government funding via the Arts Council has been very, very poor. Their statistics, I think with about 15% of the working age population disabled, only 5% of that public money goes to disabled workers. And if you look at freelancers and if you look at people like chief executives, it's really, really very poor, and it hasn't improved. So you already have a major problem. With coronavirus and live events being predicted to be the absolute last things to open, I was looking in the press today and they predict as many as 400,000 jobs could go. And that's just in London and the southeast alone. And the concern is from disabled people working right across art forms and industries in all sorts of different positions, is that disabled people's gains have come so slow and so hard won. long fights that still continue, and they'll be back at the bottom of the pile. So yes, I think this concern is that we have a long way to go, but we look like we could very easily be going backwards, and that with commercial pressures, and particularly if people still have to shield, they're particularly vulnerable. You know, as wheelchair users, I still haven't seen a single study about whether we're more vulnerable on public transport because we're below everybody else. I think the temptation is very much going to be that those people that get made redundant first are people with long-term health conditions, people who've got mobility impairments that prevent them from getting to work. Lots of the front of house jobs are on casual, 0 hours contracts. Again, would you employ somebody who you perceive, whether or not that's true, as being slower if you're only going to have one job instead of two? So there are real concerns about that, and I think we very much share them at Together 2012 and very much support the campaign. I mean, what are your concerns around the impact of coronavirus on the industry, and also people's opportunities to access the arts? Because it shouldn't just be about whether or not we get jobs and whether we get opportunities to be artists. It's so important for us as disabled people to be in the audience.
I think for me, there's several things that come up. With regards to accessing the arts, I think it's already marginalized all those people who don't have access to broadband and the internet, and can't access it through the libraries, etc., the avenues that they would use ordinarily. I think economically they're usually disadvantaged anyway, but I think this period of shielding and lockdown has intensified that. I think the other thing which worries me an awful lot are the artists who aren't privileged, the artists who aren't funded regularly, the artists who aren't commercial but are working as sole artists, sort of sole traders, and they're not getting the money from the Arts Council. You know, it's all very well for
I
the
know.
Arts Council to be said. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's all very well for the Arts Council to say we've got this inclusive policy, we're looking at diversity, we're targeting, the people who'll be the most affected. They're not actually. I'm sorry. They're targeting some people whose names are known to them already, and the others are just not getting a look in. They're not getting the grants. They're not getting access to further funding, and there's nothing on the website to help them out. There's nothing on the website that's very clear about where to go next. And in the meantime, people still have to pay their rents. They still have to eat. They still have to pay the electricity, let alone trying to get onto broadband. So I'm sorry. I think, individually, I think there's an awful lot of people who are very isolated and therefore struggling very hard, and we just don't know anything about them at all.
What I would say at this point to anybody who's in that situation, we have a professional development club which I lead. We offer 45-minute one-to-one sessions. We can do that by Zoom, Skype, FaceTime. I can't make voice calls alone, but that's just because I can't access them. But we're very willing as well to enter into email correspondence. So if you feel it would be useful to be able to sit down and go through your situation with somebody else who might be able to help, but at least can listen and feedback, then get in touch. Our email address is at the bottom of your screen. It's info@together2012.org.uk, but you can also just send it to ju@together2012.org.uk, or indeed tv@together2012.org.uk. We would just love to hear from you. This live stream is taking place as part of our online Join In From Home programme. We are aware, as Julie said, that many people don't have access to broadband. In more usual times, we run a programme on weekday mornings of free, accessible, inclusive arts clubs. And what we're doing at the moment is we're offering that service by phone on a one-to-one basis, and also by phone on a Wednesday morning for our pop-up poetry club. So again, if you're interested in taking part in those activities remotely, it doesn't matter where you live, then just get in touch with us with the details that we've just given you. As we were saying, today is Poetry Day, and I'm delighted to say that we've had a film poem sent in. We had a lovely film poem last week, and this one is from our drama company, Act Up Newham. And most timely, it's also a rap about Black Lives Matter. We talked a bit last week about our Young Black Lives Matter, where we're raising awareness of the more than 1,500 young disabled people in the London Borough of Newham who would have support at school and college if statistically they lived anywhere else, but they're just slipping through the radar locally. So that's one of the issues that we're taking up. We think it's really important that everybody, yes, comes together and supports what is such an important campaign. So this is a rap by Grace Fundu and Act Up Newham on Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter. We are all in one people. I don't understand why us Black people getting killed by the police because of our skin color, how we represent ourselves, how we dress, how we move, how we talk. It's like everything we do is a crime. They look at us as if we are bad people and giving us bad names like thugs, gangster. Us Black people will stand for our rights. We are not the problem. Racism is the problem. Racist people are the problem. Educate yourself, educate each other. Stand up to racism, understand each other. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter.
Well, thank you very much for that, Grace and Act Up Newham. For anybody who couldn't see that, the various members of Act Up Newham, I think there's 7 in total at the moment, were holding up their own artwork on the theme of Black Lives Matter and also signing in terms of as it was going along, and joined in at the end. So that's where the other voices came from. And all but one of those people were people of colour. So, like I say, again, thank you very much, Act Up Newham. Of course, when we look at, as we describe it, intersectionality, where we're all complex individuals, not just one thing at all. Again, people of colour are very underrepresented within disability arts. And I think the disability arts world has to take absolutely some responsibility for that. We looked at who we'd programmed. I think last year for International Women's Day, we looked at the number of women we'd worked with over, I think really back since 2012, when we were a one-off festival, supposedly. And then in 2013, we became an organisation, well, that we are today, where we deliver a year-round programme of creative workshops for disabled people and disabled-led arts programmes for everybody. Did you want to add anything to that, Julie?
You didn't say what the outcome of that that was in relation to the commissioning of Black artists.
No, that's right. Sorry, my memory seems to be. I must have cut it off with some of my hair. Well, what we concluded was that the majority of people we work with locally are people of colour, but nationally, it's a very different picture in terms of who's working and who's available. And in terms of men of colour, the artists that we've employed have all come from outside the UK. And I think that just gives a sort of taste of the lack of opportunities for people of colour in the UK. It has to be said the arts are very badly paid. I mean, the average performer last year, I think, made less than £10,000. You know, it is not a good career. So if you're not going to be offered good career options, it's not a career you're going to choose. And I think it took me quite a long time to realise that one reason the diversity figures are so flat, by which I mean the proportions of disabled people and people of colour being employed are not increasing is because people come into the arts and see all these barriers and see better money and fewer barriers elsewhere and go again. And I think the reality is that a lot of people are going to leave the arts and never come back. It isn't going to be a question of, well, maybe in 5 years' time things look very like they did last year. You know, those people will be in other jobs. I suspect a lot of artists will retrain as teachers because there's a lot of similarity in terms of you need a degree, you need at least a year's graduate training. You know, certainly when you're being told about paying artists, you're told that teachers are a good comparator, and it's a very performance based kind of profession. I can see quite a number of people moving from social care into childcare, I think for the same reason, that there's going to be far more demand for childcare and teachers because of isolation and separation and distancing. I don't think people will be given a great deal of choice in the matter. I think for self-employed people, the other changes that universal credit were bringing in, and we won't go into the details of those at the moment, but we do know that they have been kind of very problematic. And I think the Inland Revenue were just saying last year, well, we consider the arts to be unsustainable businesses. If you're not making more than £10,000 a year, you should be doing something else. So you've also got that push coming from the Benefits Authority. And I think it's much tougher on disabled people because many artists do an extra job, and it's much harder if you've got some kind of long-term health condition, a visual impairment, a hearing impairment, a learning difficulty, to just go out there and get the same kind of jobs that other people do. Mind you, they may not be available now either, apart from cleaning, and I suspect there's going to be lots of cleaning jobs around. Somebody else got something interesting to say here?
You're going to say something. I mean, it is a really problematic area. You know, not, I mean, just sustaining yourself as an artist in any way. I mean, one of the reasons that, you know, I have or would have a second job if we weren't in lockdown, is because I needed to get one, you know. So, and, you know, thankfully being able to be a swimming coach, you know, and doing a job that I, you know, having a second job that I love as much as a first job, is probably quite unique, and just that neither of them pay very much money. But in terms of the representation of people, you know, even you know, in Birmingham, in terms of finding artists who identify as disabled people, and from, you know, our people of color, for example, it's still, even in a you know, and in a city like Birmingham, it's hugely imbalanced, because of all the reasons that why the whole campaign is going in the first place, you know, about expectations and what your expectations of who you are going to be, you know. And I mean, as a parent, I was horrified not that long ago when you look at the statistics about how they think they're going to need to fund schools, you know, the demographics that they use to look at school funding are really quite distasteful. I mean, I can't tell you off the top of my head, but, you know, you would be, if you came from a family with incidents of disability, incidents of unemployment, incidents of colour, in, you know, and live in the council house, or, you know, some kind of supported rented accommodation, it's kind of conversely weird, but the school get more money for you.
Yeah.
But, you know, but it's the whole picture that it presents of the difference, all the differences. And I think that one of the things that needs to underpin what we do, what the Black Lives Matter campaign does do, and a very real conversation I was having yesterday with the Commonwealth Games curator producers, and their hope for a legacy, a real ongoing legacy, is about how all these things aren't disaggregated. So there's a little bit of this, and a little bit of this, and a little bit of this, but actually it's this pot of art and culture that is both experienced and people can see representations of who they are in it, but the art forms in themselves and the practitioners deliver it in a much more inclusive way, so that the legacy is about art in the West Midlands and arts practices in the West Midlands moving forward as organisations and practices that do see every job as a job that anyone can do, and not just give the jobs that everyone else doesn't want to do to the, poor local learning disabled person.
Great. So we're going to leave it at that because I see time is ticking on. I think there's an awful lot to be said about art, culture, and sports. And as an organisation that is underpinned by Article 30 of the UN Convention on the Rights of Disabled People, and that covers our right to art, culture, and sport to participate in and to be audiences on an equal basis. You may have gathered by now that the Surgeoners are swimmers and highly competitive. In the absence of much or any real sport, and with the virtual bear hunt taking place internationally, each Wednesday we race clockwork toys for the ability of one of our bears to wear a gold medal. So we have the London 2012 bear, and our bear today is Lily the lesbian teddy. I thought if you can't have a teddy in a t-shirt that says lesbian in Pride Month, you probably never can. So she's light brown, she's got a white t-shirt and a collar that seems to be made up of a rainbow wristband. And which teddy have you got, Robin?
We have Harrod, who I believe
Snowy Howard.
may be non-binary. They are back this week to try to win where they only came second last week. They were disappointed.
Well, we have new competitors replacing our team of wind-up clockwork grannies in power wheelchairs. Today's competitors are actually, I can't even remember what one of them is, but I cut the memory off with my hair. But one of them looks like a rabbit, and I think the other one is a frog. One of the reasons I say this is that I have been going through my collection of clockwork toys this morning with WD-40 oil because they all kept breaking down, and I have indeed ordered some new ones, which was a wonderful excuse. But I'm just going to go back, as usual, to say right or left.
Which right and which left?
Well,
as we look at it.
As we look at it.
Okay, I'm going left as we look at it.
So, sports people, you're very welcome to give us a bit of commentary, but I'm going to...
Okay.
Get the commentator voice ready.
Okay, hang on.
It's going to be a quick race. This one's a bit of a sprint, as you see. We may have some invaders on the track. This could not be good. We don't like interference with our athletes. Surely there's guidelines on that kind of thing.
And they're off. Grabs out to an early lead. Oh, and he seems to have stopped short of the line.
Yeah, could be there. And that is astonishing. Astonishing there. Was it a frog leg that broke? We're not sure, but thankfully the Commonwealth competitor
I've just had it in from the medical team. He actually pulled a hammy. He's pulled a hammy. His Achilles is gone. Limping over the finish line now, but he didn't win. So
with no further ado, here is Harrod with a medal. Look at that shiny, beautiful, smiley medal.
They didn't want it taken away from them. That's why.
Yeah, that was. I don't know if I remember. I said last week, but this was Emily's first ever medal. Nothing to do with sport. It was for being the smiliest child in the reception or nursery class, I think.
And now he is the smiliest bear.
Yeah.
A smile of triumph. Mm.
So, coming up in the second half of our show, we will have Nature Watch with Precious Newman, where Julie's assistant's dog takes out a camcorder and shows us what life is like in the outside world. But before that, I think we will continue with our sporting theme. Hand over to you, Josh, to tell us what we can do without leaving the house in terms of sport and gaming.
Well, today officially marks the restart of the Premier League. And there are a couple of games tonight, and then it carries on through to the 1st of July. I think the game that everybody is looking forward to, the game that everybody is looking forward to watching will most likely be the Everton-Liverpool match on Saturday evening. Because if Liverpool win that, then they will be crowned champions, and it'll be the first time they've ever won the Premier League. For those of you that are going to argue that Liverpool had already won it before, it wasn't officially the Premier League when they did. But we can talk about that a little bit more on Friday in what to do for the weekend, and I'll give specifics of where to watch that. Golf's been back on last week, and it's nice to see that they haven't lost their skills because there was a playoff because the top two players were both on 15 under par.
That's very good, you know.
Which I can't even imagine being that good at golf, let alone actually being that good at golf. And then kind of it segues into gaming quite nicely. Thursday last week would have been the start of the European Football Championships that were being held kind of across Europe. I think there was 13 host countries technically. But I'm going to try and persuade Dad that we can run our own smaller, because we haven't got time, but Euros tournament on the FIFA games online. So well, if anybody at home does have FIFA and they wish to have their own mock Europeans, then I recommend it because it is quite good fun.
Who's rubbish at football?
I can't see. Robin is so ecstatic that the teddy bear has won a medal that it's been decorated and is just really rubbing in at the front of the screen, so much so that I've had to take my teddy bear onto my lap to comfort it, and I feel that everything is.
But he can talk. My mouth's not moving. Look, you see. Hello.
No one can see. It's fine.
You shouldn't just yet.
And then so that kind of segues into gaming. Robin and I have continued a playthrough of A Way Out, which is a co-op only game. We've now successfully escaped from prison. We went fishing the other day, which was somewhat successful and somewhat not, depending on who you ask. But we've been kind of getting into that a little bit more. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think my people would say left-handedness. My right-handedness is slightly easing now, and I'm able to use both halves of the controller, and only get lost occasionally. So actually starting to make it more of an enjoyable experience playing rather than just being frustrated and moaned at for getting us captured endlessly by security guards. But yeah, so I have to say, actually, it's quite nice, and it is a different experience of gaming because you are genuinely doing it together, supporting each other, as opposed to most games you're trying to beat each other in some way or another. I mean, whether that's racing or golf or actual, fighting.
Yeah, it is. And then the final thing.
Sorry, Josh, I just wanted to come in and say because we are very, very new to gaming. We're one of those people who've, yes, caved in to lockdown pressure and the inability to spend our money any other way, including on the necessary repairs it was due for. But we have a wonderful live captioning service, courtesy of Global Real Time Captioning. And we were talking to our pal and typist, Julia, before this started, and she's been giving Julia and I more recommendations of games which we can play together that don't involve too much speed and a bit more working together. I think it'll be a long time before we need to trouble Josh in terms of playing online. But yes, thank you very much to Julia from Global Real Time Captioning. Apologies for all of the talking over each other. And now back to Josh.
The final thing that I wanted to mention, and it kind of well, I'll say it links in, it's directly related to it being Pride Month. But I was just kind of flicking through on my Xbox yesterday, and on the homepage, there was a tab. I don't know exactly what it was called, but it had a list of games that Microsoft employees had put together that are kind of inclusive and supportive of LGBTQI plus storylines or characters, whether that's characters that you play as or characters that are in the games. One of the games it's highlighted was a game called The Outer Worlds, which is the only one of the games that I played. So I thought I could kind of briefly mention that one because it's a really good game. I just thought it was kind of really interesting that, they've put this list together, and, the games range from The Outer Worlds, which is a kind of open world role-playing game, through to kind of puzzle games and card games, and there's a list of many different kind of options, and then there's a link to kind of, if you want more information around Microsoft and Pride, that's got kind of stories from different employees around why do you talk about racism during Pride, kind of stories of being LGBT people and employees, and then links to ways that you can donate to support or events. And there's a 24-hour live stream on the 21st or 27th. I can't remember exactly. I'll find it out for closer to the date. Live stream that's happening, that's all around kind of pride and inclusivity and things like that. I just thought it was really good to see that kind of being promoted, and not just in a, yes, there are links for you to buy merch with flags on and things like that, but actually, the top page is stories and ways to educate yourself about it, and I thought it was really good to see a major company doing that rather than it just being a buy this rainbow shirt, and that there's actually kind of some thought behind them doing it rather than just being a kind of cash grab because it's June.
Yeah, so for anybody who's new to the show, you can watch this show on YouTube, but you can also watch it on our website, together2012.org.uk, under the link Together TV. Under that same link, we also have a highlights and links page. And after each show, we post the videos that we've shown and also the links to the things that we've discussed. So that link will be up there. The recording is usually on the website with enhanced audio and captions by 8 o'clock, but the captions can take a bit longer to process. Did you want to come in about the Pride Games, Julie?
I know there's the Microsoft historically, I say historically, so over the last 10 years, probably plus, have put themselves out there as supporters of Pride and Pride Month, which is great because they carry a lot of economic strength, don't they? So having a game which is interesting and which is engaging and which is promoted as supporting Pride Month is excellent. I think there is some global pride things happening on not this weekend, but the following weekend. So, we can both have a little look and see what's about. And it would be really good to be able to promote that, Josh. I think as regards to gaming, I still haven't got beyond the frustration of going round in circles looking for a way out of the marketplace and sort of like coming up against walls and gates and trying to jump and it not happening. And I've given up in despair for the moment, but I will go back to it.
What game is it?
Oh, it's that one about that woman who does searching for things.
Tomb
Tomb
Raider.
Raider.
That's the one. Lara Croft.
Yeah. I love the new Tomb Raider games. They're really good.
Good. I'm glad you like them.
He can tell you all about
I'm trying to remember. Yeah. Off there, I'll try and give you some directions.
Thank you, Josh. Everything that will help would be greatly appreciated.
You see, people don't think that young people have this stereotype of young people as giving up easily, but the reality is that anybody who plays computer games knows that you just have to keep try again. And here we are at the other end of the coronavirus isolation spectrum, and you're just giving up.
Yep.
Well, and of course, my cunning plan from the start has been, well, I'll buy it, darling, and then you can show me how to use it. So my hands aren't very good at the moment. Once you've worked out how to use it, then I'll play. So this is really not helping me either. But still, I think it's fairly true to say that we will be mostly living at home and working from home for a very long time to come. So we will be here with Together Unlocked, and we will be learning to play games. Check back next year. I hope we've actually got beyond Lara Croft. There also seems to be adverts everywhere for some new PlayStation game that's coming out this weekend. Do you know the one I mean, Josh? Which also
I do. It's called The Last of Us 2, which is a sequel to The Last of Us.
Isn't that like contradictory?
Yes, no. It's not The Last of Us 2, as in the two of us. It's
just anyway.
Is in the sequel. I haven't played them because they are kind of PlayStation exclusives, unfortunately, and I do have an Xbox. But I mean, certainly, the Last of Us is because I've seen it and I've seen the story. It won kind of every award you can imagine, for both gameplay, but also the narrative and the storytelling within it. I think that's something that gets overlooked quite a lot with video games. Everyone looks at kind of Call of Duty Online and it's just teenagers running around killing each other and shouting mean things about each other's mums. But actually the ability to have really in-depth, kind of immersive, engrossing stories, interactive movies almost, I think is a really big part of gaming, especially single player games.
absolutely.
I think as well the graphics are important. I remember when I was a very little girl and I used to watch the Mickey Mouse Club on the television, because I grew up in North America. And I got very, very excited when the first Disneyland was built, because I thought this is going to be so exciting. All the creatures will come to life, and you go there and you'll be able to talk to Mickey Mouse and Goofy and all of the others. When I saw the pictures, the newsreels of the new Disneyland, it was people dressed up in outfits, and I've never felt so let down as I did when I was that little girl. And it stays with you, and having games with good graphics that are immersive, it goes a little way towards redressing the balance of that.
I mean, there absolutely are interactive movies, and absolutely are an art form. And as we were saying earlier, as with other art forms, there's an awful lot of technical work involved, which is also incredibly creative. I should plug here, we have a specific youth program, and if you're a young person or a family with a young person who is shielding, we actually offer the Arts Award program where you can get nationally recognised qualifications. Our youth worker, the artist Hazel Brill, will work with you one-to-one. So do contact us if you're interested in that. And gaming is one of the art forms that you can focus on within the Arts Award scheme, I think absolutely quite rightly. And of course, here it brings together the sort of sport, art, and online all very nicely. I'm thinking it would be a good time to see what the outside world is like.
Oh, yes, please.
But I was just going to say about the new game, I have subscribed to one of these for PlayStation. There's a service where you can pay a reasonable amount a month. Certainly, if you're not going out, it is a reasonable amount. And you can just get access to all of their older games. But if you're thinking, I don't know, everybody else is going out, maybe I should go out this weekend, stay at home and buy this instead. It is really not safe. It's not worth it. There's lots of people who absolutely have to be out there. So we'll be staying at home with the cats, including the big shaggy black one that has just jumped up behind us because he is so keen. Like,
And we're having a virtual teddy bear picnic.
Oh, hey.
so I'm going to put Precious on the screen and I'm going to get you to do the commentary, Julie. If you could mute your mic, Robin.
And here we go. It's another day outside. Oh, whoa. What's happening? I don't know where my brother is. Oh, where is he gone? He's... Oh, yes, he must be there somewhere. Brother. Hello. Hello. Oh, there he is. Oops. Oh, hang on. It's that dog over the fence. My enemy. Somebody's barking. It's not me. No, it's not me. Oh, yes, it is. I'm barking. But who is it? This isn't a dog I know, is it? That's not my brother. For goodness sake, who is it? Oh dear. Oh, there he is. What you doing, Jazz? He can't figure it out either. Who's barking, Jazzy? Oh, don't give up. Let's find it. Let's find the dog. What does the garden look like? It's got pebbles and green furniture and a ladder, which I can't climb up, of big wooden fancy things, and there's a dog somewhere barking and I don't know where it's gone. And there's pot plants and a pond and hangy down things and oh dear, I don't know. I'm going in. I've had enough now. That's it. Bye-bye.
And thank you very much for that, Precious and Julie. We've been enjoying the garden from inside on the grounds that it is so small it is impossible to socially distance. But although the risk is still very high, the hazard, as they say, has been much lower. So I've at least enjoyed getting out there with a mask on and doing some tidying up. I thought it looked tidier than Precious's last film anyway. I'm having some questions asked, where is Penny Pepper? And if you watch this show regularly, you will know that Penny Pepper is our virtual writer in residence. Fortunately, we had a virtual writer in residence before lockdown. Penny is in Hastings and she's a regular contributor to this show. She's had a regular hospital appointment and that's left her a little bit tired. So get well soon, Penny. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week. We've been a bit light on poetry as a result, but I think it's been good to talk about the campaign in particular. We shall not be removed. Although I would have liked to have heard Penny's thoughts, so I'm sure this is something we will continue to discuss. On Friday, we'll continue to talk about Pride Month and Learning Difficulty Week, and also Newham Heritage Month. I'm just going to find some details because tonight there is a interactive live pub quiz as part of Newham Heritage Month. We're going to put the link up to that. Newham Heritage Month should have taken place in May. They've, at the speed of light, rescheduled it for this month. I believe it's funded by the Heritage Lottery Fund and Newham Council. They're releasing new things on the website each day and then they're staying up there. So there's a lot of information that's already there with videos and links. And then live events are happening or videos are being released on a daily basis. So I'm not, as you can possibly imagine, very good at things like pub quizzes. But if you're a pub quiz person, anywhere in the UK or beyond, I think they would love you to join them. So that link will be on the highlights page, which actually is published before the show is published. The highlights page should be up there by about 6 o'clock in plenty of time. Are you
So
Don't worry, we'll join your pub quiz too.
yeah, I mean, is it competitive? Is the question.
Of course it is.
we should have signed the Surgeoners up already.
Well, we're actually. I mean, we're
It depends
running
on
a
what time it is.
yeah,
No,
we're running a breaststroke masterclass over Zoom this evening. So yeah, we won't be finished till probably about 8. But you never know, we might get the whole Surgeonator clan signed up to it.
That wouldn't surprise me at all. Or indeed, maybe we should have a disability arts interactive pub quiz on Together TV. At the moment, we bring this live stream to you on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 3 to 4. But we do have the channel available the rest of the time. So, in the same way that we would love to see and share your artwork, your poems, and your films, if you would like to make a program for us, anybody out there from We Shall Not Be Removed, for example, we would be delighted to show it and to promote your work, so long as it's suitable, as they say, for a family audience or is shown later in the evening. I'm so desperate to ask what a virtual swimming masterclass looks like, but fortunately, we're beginning to run out of time. But I just have these images in my mind of illustrations from children's books, and I think there was possibly an Enid Blyton about 2 children that joined the circus, and they were taught to do breaststroke, lying across crates in the big top, waving their hands up and down.
Oh, I've read that.
It's not at all like that, but I just have this image of everybody kind of lying on boxes in their sitting room and doing their swimming strokes.
no, it's much more quiz based. We might have to get them lying under some stools or something.
I mean, yeah, I mean,
later on.
you'd be, because of the where we do our swimming and stuff, the people we work with, what swimmers learn these days as they move up the competitive ladder, there is so much technical information. It's not just what you do in the pool. There's something called aquatic literacy, which you have to kind of get your head around, which is, can start from as simple as things like floating as a word and buoyancy, but move up into lots of different movement skills and things.
Yeah. It's not as easy as people make it look, because there's a character in a TV show we've just started watching who's supposed to be a competitive swimmer, and he is absolutely rubbish for actors.
I know.
But anyway, it's 3 minutes to 4, so we need to wrap up.
Yes, I must say I do question whether the character in the new Alibi surf series really has, shall we say, quite the physique for surfing. But hey, I spent 9 months living in a surf community in Cornwall when I was finishing my PhD, so maybe I'm just a bit prejudiced about British bodies, but I personally think she would have slight difficulty staying upright, and she doesn't seem to have many of the right muscles, but it is a good new series, particularly if you're desperate to be out on the beach.
What's
And
that called?
still at home. What is it called? Is it
Reef.
I've never heard of it.
Right?
I think it's Reef. I think something like that. It's on 8 o'clock on a Friday evening on Alibi.
Yeah. A similar vein, Lara Croft, the private schoolgirl, can't swim, and it really bugs me in all of the games. She's got really rubbish technique. I just wanted to really quickly highlight, because I've just given it a quick look, We Shall Not Be Removed is actually trending on Twitter at the moment, which is really good.
Excellent.
And it was trending, I think, this morning. For anybody who hasn't seen it, if you're a disabled person and you're making artwork, put a picture or a reference to your artwork onto social media with the hashtag We Shall Not Be Removed. So on my personal Twitter stream this morning, I put up some photos of my Lightbox series, which is currently on exhibition at Trinity Boy Wolf Arts Quarter, and then just added the hashtag. And then together we did a tweet talking about this show with the hashtag, and then we'll be putting some more information on Facebook and so on later. So they really, really want you to put up your own artwork. And I think, Josh, those pictures you were showing us last week and this week, add your voice, because I think it's Yes, I mean, I don't want to finish on a depressing note, so I will say it's wonderful that so many artists and creatives are coming together. But the threat is very real that we will lose the gains that we've made, and that employment opportunities and audience opportunities are going to be significantly reduced. We don't want that to happen, and it doesn't have to. None of these things are set in stone. So make your voice count. We shall not be removed. In fact, we will be helping to make the world a better place, a more creative place, a peaceful place, and an artistic place. So, on that happy note, we will welcome you back on Friday at 3 o'clock. On a Friday, we dress up to go out to stay in. It can be for any occasion, real or imaginary. We would love to see, we haven't seen for a while now, your pictures and your films of you dressed up to go out to stay in. Send them to us by Friday morning and we will put them on the show in the afternoon. So it just remains to say thank you so much for watching. I'm Ju Gosling for Together Unlocked.
I'm Julie Newman for Together.
I'm Josh Surgeonator, Together Unlocked.
I am Robin Surgeonator for Together Unlocked, and this is Howard for Birmingham 2022.
So we will say goodbye for now and have a great evening.
Bye bye. Bye bye.